Here's a bulletin. State Police, Princeton Junction. Hills Militia. Certain individuals of unidentified nature is now under complete control.
Hip-hop is not what it is today. It's the real. It's the
Militia.
Yo, welcome back to the Boys Guru. That would be me, once again, the Boys Report. This time I'm going over the defensive backs. Number 31 right here is one of which, hopefully, this is the old Roy Williams, the guy that we used to love. Anyhow, hopefully I can turn this into a Mike Jenkins jersey, because I am high on him as well as Scandrick. To summarize the season for the defensive backs, it's proof that the NFL and the statistics for the NFL for everything, especially defense, suck. They don't tell the real story. They don't tell the whole story. Luckily, there are some resources out there that tell a better story, besides what you see with your own eyes and hear with your own ears. So that would be the lesson to take away. Looking at the stats, when you first glance at it, great, 5th in the NFL in pass defense, 5th in yards. Didn't really give up the big plays, middle of the pack and over 40 yards. But that doesn't tell the story at all. So what you want to get away from is the stats and the name part of it. So Newman, for example, made the Pro Bowl. He's our lead corner, got a 6-year extension. Now, why did he get a 6-year extension? He had a great year, was under-recognized for years, and finally got in. Right now, he's over it. He's over that threshold. He's 30 years old. By the time the contract's up, he'd be 35. I don't see him lasting any throughout the duration of the contract, probably not even halfway through the contract. I like him. I still think he's effective, but he's not the same player. He hasn't, since Parcells left, he has not finished the season. He only played 10 games this year. Had 4 interceptions, but 2 of which came in the Giants game, which was a big one. But he did well. Let's see. But the real story, when you really want to break it down, is you want to look at number 1 receivers. So the number 1 receiver usually lines up on the right-hand side next to the tight end. And number 1 receivers against our corners rank 22nd in the league, which is just, when you're paying Newman, you're paying Pac-Man, that kind of money, you need better performance out of that. So between Jenkins, Newman, and Pac-Man, they were 22nd in the league. So that is certainly a cause for concern. The best receivers on the opposing team line up there, like I mentioned. Now it gets even worse. On the other side, which is Henry's side, we rank 26th in the league in that category. So that means that we are in the bottom third of the NFL in giving up yards and stats to receivers in general with our starting corners. So that just means they're not cutting it. There's a lot of money tied in there. I'm not as worried as maybe some fans would be or in other seasons, because for all the other receivers we're 12th, so that's in the top half of the league. And who was covering those receivers? Those were our young guys. That's the Allen Balls, the Mike Jenkins, and especially my growing favorite DB is Scandrick. So as far as the corners are concerned, I do believe that we're going to need to get maybe one more corner, probably through the draft, to help with the special teams. That's something that I covered the last session. So now going through the safeties. Now Hamlin didn't have half the year that he had the year before. He had 5 picks the year before, only 1 pick. I'm not going to cut it. I do have my notebook once again. And then on the strong safety side, we ranked 28th in the league. against tight ends. It's been a thorn in our side for years and years and years, ever since Darren Woodson left. We need to address that, especially with the tight end being the X factor position in the league right now. It has to be addressed. I expect us to move Hamlin over to the strong safety spot. Hopefully he can do the job there. I'm not quite sure he can. He was banged up in his defense. Keith Davis, I'd like to see us keep him on to play some special teams. And we should be moving Henry over to the free safety position. He played there in Cleveland, had a lot of success there. He's good with the ball in the air. He's cagey. I do think he could make a really strong transition over to that position. So overall, I think the DBs played well. Can we get better? Absolutely. We only had 8 interceptions, 7 by the defensive backs. To put that into perspective, we have 7 by Paul Amalo by himself, Ed Reed. Our pass breakups were, as a group, less than, I believe, Ed Reed's total output. Are we going to get an Ed Reed? No. But we can draft a safety. There's a lot of good safeties in this draft. I'm going to go over that later. But I do think, and then there's one free agent that I have a super duper eye on that I think would be, he's kind of under the radar, and I think he would, take care of a lot of the problems. So I'll go over that a little later in the free agency preview that I'll be doing, as well as a draft preview to go over some of the draft prospects that could help. Safety is one of those positions that you can have an immediate impact on. So corner, I think it takes, you get picked on, the young guys get picked on all the time. I'd like to see Scandrick take Henry's slot, Newman to stay where he is, and then have Jenkins slowly integrate, perhaps by the end of next year, into that slot. And then hopefully between Courtney Brown and Alan Ball, they could be effective nickel corners or perhaps a draft pick to solidify that position. As far as safety is concerned, I'd like to see Keith Davis stay. Roy Williams looks to be cut. He's making way too much money for the production we've gotten out of him. So between Henry, Hamlin, and Davis, that's good. We need one more safety to groom, perhaps, or the X Factor guy that I have my eye on. So I will be going over that at a later time. That's the wrap on that. And one last thing, the next episode is going to cover the linebackers. So I'm going to cover the linebackers, perhaps the highlight of the defense. But there are quite a few question marks that will be needing to be addressed in the upcoming weeks in the off season. So be prepared for that. Should be another couple days when I get that out. And we'll talk to you later. Peace.